wananchi ambao wamengojea kwa hamu na gamu rais, ndio hao basi wamefurahia sana kukuona Kieni leo. Karibu sana Mheshimiwa Rais. Aya, wananchi wa Kieni hamjambo, andũ a Nyeri mũriega, mwathani agocwo. In the conversation, and it will be a very open session. Journalists are used to taking questions and asking questions. Ask them the questions this time. Thank you. So on the extreme, I'll start from the extreme right. That is Ochieng, Mr. Ochieng.
Oh, I'm Benson Ochieng. I'm an environmental law and policy expert. I'm executive director of the Institute for Law and Environmental Governance and a partner at Ochieng Advocates. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. Next.
My name is Ruth Nyamasege. I'm working for GIZ. I'm a climate change expert, and I'm coordinating climate change programs within GIZ Kenya.
Thank you, Ruth.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Peter Odhengo. I'm the head of Climate Finance and Green Economy Unit at the National Treasury and Economic Planning, National Treasury. I'm also the program coordinator for financing locally led climate action, Pesa Masinani, in all the place, and also finally the coordinator or the president of Africa Green Finance National Designated Authorities, AFDAN, which is based here in Nairobi. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Very heavy titles. That's a complete source. Yes, Pam is a long-serving editor, and I want her to introduce herself. Give yourself the titles.
I don't know if it's good morning or good afternoon. It's heading to good afternoon. Yes. My name is Pamela Sigi. I am a member of the Editors Guild, but I'm also the managing editor of Citizen TV. And I've reported on climate change from the year 2008. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. Pam, then Ruth.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning once again. Nice to see you all here. Thank you for making the time to be here with us. My name is Ruth Nesoba. I'm the Vice President of the Kenya Editors Guild. It is a body that brings together all editors in the country, and we're the gatekeepers. We're the ones who decide which story will go now or not. Happy to see you all here. I'm also the News Gathering and Deployments Editor, Regional, for the BBC World Service here in Nairobi. Thank you very much.
Most give them a round of applause. The Editors Guild is very gender sensitive. The leadership, we're talking about the perspective. It's very led. The president and the vice president and or the CEO, we are all gender compliant. So that's already the discussion goes on. So I'd like to start from the very extreme end, from Benson. What is your take? And what the media needs, what's the story that the media needs to take from this place? And how will you find areas of collaboration?
Thank you very much, Ken. It's a pleasure to be here. It's difficult to find a good place to start, but I believe we are all consumers of news and partners of the media one way or another. And many of us have had the chance, or often have the chance, to see what is written or reported on environment generally, but more recently on climate change. I have had some very interesting conversations this morning with a number of news editors in various newsrooms and had the opportunity to point out at least a few gaps in a number of reports that we have seen basically over the last 1 week in relation to this event. And as somebody who practices climate or sustainable development law and policy, you can't fail, if you work in that arena, to notice the gaps in capacity to be able to grasp basic aspects or issues in the climate change science and policy. I would say that it is so bad that one gets very concerned how we are going to seal the gap within the shortest time possible, because there is a lot of movement in that particular scene. We are here today in Nairobi this week. Before the end of the year, we are going to have a major global conference on the same thing, and it is called StockTech Conference. Basically, this journey has been on from 1992, when the United Nations Framework Convention was signed at the Rio Earth Summit. That is a period, almost a lifetime. And if you look at the science of climate change, it is a period within which we could conclude that climate has changed. And yet, the media still lags behind in keeping up with both the science and legal and policy developments in the arena. I want to applaud the GELD for convening this, but also give you a challenge that this is the time to partner and reach out and work with people of goodwill to seal that gap, because there is no room or time to wait.
Thank you very much, Benson. And that challenge of the gap, do we understand? Do we see an opportunity for capacity building? Do we see an opportunity for further training? That is a question that we need to ask ourselves as the media and as the stakeholders, because it's all about all of us. Nobody is working inside of how can we work together as a team. I think that's also important that, Benson, you brought that up, that you see the gaps and we can address them. And how do we do this? Is by having this discussion. Yes, Ruth, from GZ, where do we find convergence with what is going on and your work in relation to climate change?
Yes, thank you. I think, so from the GIZ side, we have supported communication for this summit. We have been engaging with media houses, actually all the media houses in the country and also within the region. And the goal was to publicize the summit as much as possible, but also to push the narrative of this summit. And I think I would want actually to applaud the media, because a lot of information has gone out. In the very beginning, we realized the summit was oversubscribed to, so that is, I think, a very good sign that we got information out regarding the summit. And also pre-summit, we saw a lot of information about the narrative. What is this summit about? The president's narrative for the summit, providing African solutions, African leaders converging together to provide solutions. This was quite covered. We also saw a lot of coverage around CSOs and their role, or them demanding to take a significant role in the agenda, in the main agenda of the summit. So we have to applaud the media. However, we also can tell that there are some gaps, as Benson says. There are some gaps about the content of this summit. There is some hot topics, I would say, like carbon markets, which has been covered quite significantly in some of the media channels. But even for this, you could sense that there's some issues around how do we bring it in a language that people understand and can subscribe to. Still also topics that are salient to the summit, topics around blue economy, oceans. As we talk about Africa and the role of carbon markets and Africa providing sinks to the globe, we also need to bring to the fore the role of the oceans, the role of blue economy, mangroves, which African countries have an abundance of, so that we also bring this into the balance sheet, as His Excellency William Ruto said yesterday, and we actually quantify the natural capital of the African continent, and this really needs to come out strongly. So the content of the summit is still lagging behind, we would say. Also going towards COP28, as Benson has said, we expect a lot of media coverage on the Nairobi Declaration. What does it mean? What do the commitments? We saw a lot of deal room commitments, which also have not been significantly covered in the media. Who has committed to what? The media has a role of being a gateway and also of providing the balances and the checks. So we need to provide this coverage of the different commitments that are coming out of this summit so that it's not another talk show, but it's more an action summit towards COP28 and providing real solutions to the African people and the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. As the German government, we have committed to support some of the media houses post this summit so that we bring this capacity into the newsroom. We provide expertise, opinion, so that this narrative beyond the summit and the declaration that will be read out today can provide input into what the COP28 African position would be, and also strengthen the media capacity beyond the summit and also COP28. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think everything comes out media capacity. Where do we find the linkages? And the pledge that you want to help is very welcome. Thank you so much, Ruth. And I think it's important because at the center of this conversation, there is the human being, the person who is affected. How do we tap into the opportunities as opposed to writing the story that we are used, getting the story that tells you a quick story that will get you the negative story. What opportunities that we see in this? Thank you so much, Ruth. Peter, you sit at the center of this conversation from the Kenyan government and the African Union. Do you think the media has been able to capture this? And to what extent have you also involved the media in a way that to see the urgency of the moment? Thank you, Peter.
Great. My answers are short, sharp, and focused. Why? The media has always sent a narrative that politics is more important than life. And if there could be a politician here, the hall would be full. Look, climate change is a life-threatening thing. But because the narrative has been given that you have to be a politician by none other than the media, then you can be listened to. But when an opportunity comes like this, and when my grandmother, who is in the village somewhere in Wajir, being heavily affected by the impact of climate change, which is the warming of the earth, and now everywhere in this country is warm. Nobody is telling my grandmother in a plain, simple language that because of the heat, she needs to change her lifestyle because there is not enough water, there is not enough food, there is no samaki that I used to eat millions of years ago, no milk mursi, but we say we are strong in politics. Wrong message. 2, capacity is not given. Capacity is built, capacity is required. The media has never required to build its capacity in the alternative emerging key issues. Look the analysis. It's just 20 years ago. Today, we are so high, the narrative has already changed. When you look at the opportunity, and I sit at the center of the climate, in 2017, having seen that there was a very significant gap in terms of reporting climate change and environmental challenges, when I was then in the office of the Prime Minister, I dedicated significant resources, money, to train the Editors Guild, and none attended my meeting. That one was the beginning of the problem. What did they do? They sent very young interns to come and listen to me. Today, if they listened to me then, what Benson and Mora is talking about should have not been there, because they say, oh, this is nothing. We did not stop there, because we knew we had an idea that you need resources to build your capacity. In 2017, because I sit also in the Green Climate Fund as the national designated authority, which gives in this money, when we were now making the readiness support of $3 million, the only people I thought and I think about and put for you $300,000 US to train you in collaboration with FAO. What did I get? You can guess. The misreporting, because there was no seriousness in picking that training. Today, we are here again. When you listen to carbon trading and analysis, what is being talked about, and carbon credit and carbon trading is not new anyway. These are the things we started in 1997. And you look at the narrative as if it is now, it came the other day. Wrong messaging. Finally, misidentification of simple things which bring change on the papers, on the TV, on the radios is really, really a serious thing. Here, we launch, not even launch, we had a real cash check of 7.3 billion going to all countries. Real cash. In fact, when my president talked, we said that because there are hot air around in these things, we could even go to central bank and get a cash because it's ready-made. How was it reported? A small thing in the corner somewhere. Yet, the Editors Guild are here and living in this country. The CEO who tracked me, I know you are in a village. That money is going to the village in the ward, in scale. Nobody picked it up. But we have an opportunity, sir. We are here for you. There is an opportunity. Partnership is available. Resources is available. We will partner.
We take the challenge. We take the challenge. And resources available, partnerships available. The ball is in our court. It's something for us to reflect on, that the opportunities that we have seen. And something that is just raised, that are we chasing the quick story and failing to go for the real story? Where is the disconnect? What is it? Is it about our training? Is it about who do we speak to? Do we know our audience? Pam, sitting and listening to Benson, to Ruth, and Peter, as an editor, a person at the center of taking sure, making sure, picking the information, assigning, and at the end of the day, aggregating the content and disseminating it. What is your take? Do you think we have missed something in the course of this conversation as the media? Are we touching base, or we are doing our own things?
Good afternoon still. I think I'll just go back to the year 2008 when I first started reporting on climate change, and I can actually count with my fingers how many of us then were reporting. And even then, trying to just put even that story on air was a big problem. And I think at the time, in 2008, climate change was a distance. I mean, we could not relate it with what was happening, because I think we were reporting climate change with the effects of coal mining in Poland, with the Maldives that were about to just sink. And I remember we even covered a small cabinet session that went on under the sea in the Maldives. So the climate change in the beginning, I think we could not relate with it. But right now, I think it is home with us, and we are seeing, I mean, then I can see quite a number of people here whom we used to report with. So the numbers and the interest has grown, but I think there's a gap in terms of training capacity and more so with the editors, because we hadn't mainstreamed climate change in the universities. I mean, right now, I know UN has, they're now doing even a master's degree in climate change and everything. Most of us have learned climate change just at work. So we are taking the challenge, and I cannot argue more that we do not that we don't prioritize climate change. Like, I think from here, one of the first things we have to do is what he's talking about, the flock money. I think it's quite key. It's one of the things we have to monitor in the counties. Are they going to utilize these funds? And I think every now and then, and maybe, I don't know if to fault governments, the last session, the last COP, there was a big deal about loss and damage, the fund itself. Have we implemented the fund? So we keep moving on to funds. And so I think sometimes journalists get a bit confused with there's so many funds in this climate change. There is we first had the African Green Climate Fund. There is the Loss and Damage Fund. There was even Adaptation Fund. Nobody even talks about it anymore. I don't know where it is. Let me say the truth. Then I think the most important thing is an assumption. We have big words that have come in: greenwashing, carbon tax, it's not bad, but I think if we are able to localize and be able to interpret what we speak in the meetings, like, I know we are talking about carbon credit and trading and benefit sharing bill. What is it? What does it mean? How does it impact Wafula in Kitale? How does it impact Ole Kantai in Kajiado? So I think for journalists, sometimes we want to relate the big terms, the big conversations with the villages, with the villagers or the communities themselves. So I think from the Nairobi Declaration, I'm hoping, and with the newsroom itself, we are able to concretize the outcome of the Nairobi Declaration and give it a human perspective. Without a human perspective, like, I'll be honest with you, at one point I felt this was a talk shop, talk. Then I said, you know what, this talk shop is important, it's for policies, but how does it relate to Wafula? How does it relate to Wanjiro? And how does it relate to Kantai? It's our role as media, I know, but it's also the role of my friend here. Sometimes scientists talk big things, big terms, big terms. Kindly, just come down to us, and we will also come down. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Pam has put it the way it is, that the jargon. Yesterday I met a reporter who told me, sir, I've been here all day. I don't know what green hydrogen is. I don't know what fund is. So there is also the element that journalists are saying, please talk the ordinary language, because storytelling is about ordinary people. It's about us. So again, we have to find a place where we can converge, a point of convergence where we have a discussion. What does carbon credit mean? Can you put it in what I feel in my pocket? Because when you talk about big terms, we lose it. And Pam, you're right that a lot of those things are also something. But the challenge also comes, are we seeking that knowledge like Peter said? Are we seeking to partner? Are we seeking to humanize these stories? Put the person at the center of it. Ruth, you work for an international media house. How does it approach? Because the experience at that level, how have you approached the issues of climate change and other technical issues that we think are technical, but they touch about our lives? How is that different? You've both local experience and international experience. Because how can that be brought to us so that we understand it?
All right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, good afternoon. Just picking up from what my colleague Pamela Asigi has said, we as international media do not operate in a bubble. We just operate as colleagues who work here in Kenya, local media. And the issue of climate change is crucial, not just within our environs, but across, seeing the impact that the climate has had on communities, most of which has been adverse. So the reporting has been very sustained, I think, because we have gone from one extreme to another. I remember, like in this patch of ours, there was in beginning 2020, there was, the